Hello everybody and welcome to the Celtic Now and for our podcast. My name is Ryan Clifford. Also joining me in the podcast this week as usual, Robert Boyle. Robert, how are you doing, mate?
Aye, okay, Ryan, for circumstances.
It's obviously been a whirlwind 24 hours to be a Celtic fan. But this kind of podcast is obviously the reaction podcast regarding the game, and also joining us on the podcast is two guys from the FitzBeanHappenin podcast. Very good podcast, guys. We'll get you the links to listening because they're very good bit of banter. Fitzy and Beans. Beans, how's things, mate?
Aye, good, mate. Thanks for having us on. Looking forward to it.
Aye, it's good to have you on. Also yourself, Fitzy.
I'm very good, mate. Aye, personally, living the dream. Celtic fan, no really.
It's, I think for most days it's a bit of we're all right, but we're not all right. We're just going through emotions now. Obviously, you've won your podcast yourself, guys. Fitzy, how did it actually start for you? Was it due to lockdown, or was it just an idea you had to kind of get involved in?
Aye, so we had a wee idea in lockdown to do it, and one late night, Beans put something up on Twitter and said, "See if me and Fitzy done a podcast, what would we call it?" And people put in some absolute nonsense. But somebody said, FitzBeanHappenin podcast. And we're like, that's an absolutely tremendous name. So we kind of toyed with the idea for a wee while. But Beans has done a bit of podcasting before, so he kind of knew what to do. So after the Euros, when we qualified, Beans is like, Fitzy, we need to do a podcast. We have to do a podcast. We done a podcast and it was about 3 hours long. So it was a learning experience. We've done a few more, and then it came at the turn of the year. Lockdown got announced; it's going to get extended, and Beans was the driver. He's like, "Mate, let's do this a bit more proper. Let's do a weekly podcast. Let's get a wee bit of momentum going, and let's do it." And it's been a right good laugh, to be honest with you.
I think I'm just kind of seeing me and Robert. I know getting involved in the podcasting. It is good, I know, especially because yours is different to yours. Obviously, yours is kind of general, and you get a bit of banter and stuff. And that's a really good listen.
Thanks very much, mate.
So we're just obviously trying to keep it just kind of the same. It's Celtic, but obviously serious, but a bit of banter. And I think Beans, I know I've listened to a few of them. These are quite comical, and it is good to, especially during lockdown. I know a lot of people have not got a lot of things to listen to that are kind of good fun and light-hearted. And I think what you do, Beans, is quite good.
I don't know how Fitzy's talking about how it's a learning experience, because he literally does absolutely no learning. He does nothing. He turns up, spouts nonsense, and then goes away, and then he'll text, "But you edited that yet? All right, cool. Have you done the graphics for that yet? Have you done this for that yet? Have you booked next week's guest in yet?" I'm like, "No bother, mate."
But that's what makes it a learning experience, mate. I'm learning for you.
Right. Nah, mate, it's really good. And being able to do the podcast and get different people on, and some of the guests we've had on so far, and some of the guests we've got lined up for coming up as well. It's people that we're genuinely interested in talking to and finding out about, and just having a bit of laugh with stuff. And it kind of actually brings a bit of purpose around your week as well. Being able to actually look forward to it, and it's what me and Fitzy kind of spend most of the week talking about, outside the usual nonsense. And then, it's quite fun. And I think we've already talked about taking it a bit more seriously as well, because we're actually doing all right. And for some people for some reason, people are listening and enjoying it. So, it's been decent.
I think most people kind of associate when. I'm not saying you talk shite because you don't, but when you're just in a podcast...
we do, mate. We definitely do. It's quite a lot of shite, that's all right.
But you get adjusted when you talk about a shite, you talk about a banter, and you're talking real stuff. And I think people actually, they tend to kind of bound into that more often than they do maybe if it's a bit more strategic, and they go, I don't want to listen to that. You want to listen to guys having a bit of banter, a bit of joke, and obviously you're getting decent guests on Fitzy, which people can maybe relate to certain aspects of maybe their life that's maybe been happening.
That was the thing that, like I was saying to you before, there's quite a few Celtic podcasts and there's quite a lot of Celtic content, and we could talk about Celtic all day, but I feel like there's enough going on. And I think during lockdown, I know for myself personally, I quite like if I'm working and I know it's a bit of a quiet day, I like a wee podcast on in the background, and I don't want something too taxing. I just want people, just a bit of general boys having a bit of chat, just to make a bit of noise in the background. So that's kind of what we're aiming at, but then we're trying to throw in a few extra things. Like we had Matt Zab Cousin on from the Coalition Against Gambling Adverts, so it was something a bit more serious and something a bit more important. So we were really quite proud of that episode, just because there's so much going on with gambling and gambling adverts that if it can get one person that doesn't fall into that trap, then we've done something good.
No, definitely. I totally agree when it comes to, like, if it is drugs, alcohol, gambling, especially during lockdown. People might be doing it a lot more because obviously they're bored, and a lot of times, obviously, we all know it's an illness and addiction, but some people as well, it's due to boredom. But
I tell you what though, we were doing the episode and I'm going, this guy Matt's on, he seems like a lovely chap. And then it kind of came to the end of the podcast and Bean's tone just changed this totally wee bit. The podcast finishes and obviously you have a wee chat afterwards. And Beans goes, how's Jeremy Corbyn to the boy? And I'm going, that's an odd question. I know he's a big Labour guy. Pod cuts off and he goes, mate, see that guy? That's Jeremy Corbyn's former spokesperson. I'm going, what? I spent 5 minutes saying how I thought that Labour was dead in Scotland. That was good.
Mate, I didn't even know. We just DM'd our page. I'm like, do you want to come on? Like, what you have done is interesting. And then halfway through it, I'm like, he's like so well spoken, and he's no missed a beat once. And I thought, I'm going to Google him, and I Googled him, and I was like, oh my God, by the way, this guy's like top tier that we've got on, we didn't even know, which actually worked. I think that kind of worked on our benefit for our benefit, because it kind of meant that we were a bit more at ease, thought we were just talking to some random guy, which helped us, because if we'd have known that beforehand, we'd have probably maybe asked other questions.
I did buckled, mate. I did buckle.
You buckle all the time anyways.
Very good. It was quite good though. See, during the week, the boy, it's not quite good, he's a wink. During the week, the boy tagged me on Twitter in an article that said Edward was going to Arsenal. And I was like, did I send him abuse or did I keep it civil? I kept it civil.
Because obviously yourself, Robert, with us, we're the same. We like listening to podcasts. Obviously, we're more Celtic related, but I do like podcasts myself, and that's the way we're trying to make it. Yours, Robert, it's just people who can relate to it, and obviously, as I say, people might be working a wee bit of background noise and a bit of kind of light-hearted banter.
Definitely, Ryan. We try and make it like how you would do it in a pub. We're trying to come across as just ordinary supporters voicing their opinions. Some good, some bad, some a lot of shite, probably. Opinions we don't know. But I really enjoyed it. I was so glad you asked us to date, Ryan. In lockdown, it's been a godsend, to be honest with you, because you know it's like you deal with your kids, deal with your missus at night. I would rather do a podcast and watch crap on Netflix or play on my phone. So I'm really enjoying it, and it's good to hear Beans and Fitz how they got into their podcast, because we can obviously take small clips off them and say that's a good thing what they've done and work on it, obviously, because they're more experienced us on it. So it's really good to hear their opinions on their podcast and stuff.
I think that's a good thing as well. With a lot of podcasts out there in the podcast world, you can actually, I know, you can take wee tips, he done that, maybe we can do this. But again, that's you're not staying ideas. It's good to see what's out there, and I think maybe due to lockdown as well, it's happened a wee bit more. People get involved in, as you say, guys, it's something you're looking forward to. Me and Robert on the phone all the time, texting, look at this, can do this, can do that. And I think Beans, it's good to get a lot of ideas, especially now, for maybe when lockdown's finished, you can actually do a lot more when you can get into maybe pubs or you can get into a studio and do a lot more.
It's forced us to think outside the box, and even though it was a box that we weren't in the first place, we've created this idea. Well, we don't created the idea. Podcasts have always existed, but we've created a podcast. I've reinvented podcasts, actually. No, we've obviously our podcast started during lockdown, and many have, and it kind of means that you're having to think outside the box in terms of how you can get people's attention, and there's a lot out there. And I think, like you said, that's the kind of trick is people, there's that much, every time you put the news on, it's draining everywhere, Facebook, everything. There's constant bad news, and it's not as if we give hope or anything in our podcast, but it just, see if it can distract somebody for a wee bit, it's good. And I think where we're at and the pace that we're moving at, we didn't really expect to be there, and definitely didn't expect to be that quickly. And I think it's really good, because me and Fitz are having conversations about, right, we'll wait till an announcement to see if restrictions ease, because then we could get away with doing that, and then we could maybe try and do that, and then we could. So I'm really looking forward to when we're actually able to move into a space and actually do some other things. And I'll actually, me and Fitz have never met, actually. We've just done this through just Twitter pals for a while back. So looking forward to I'll never get round to Fitzy's. Fitzy's known me before lockdown. He never invited me for a pint, so I'm never actually going to meet him.
Eventually, mate. Eventually.
Podcast.
I was washing my hair that day.
But I can definitely agree when it comes to obviously taking bits and bobs and see if it gives somebody, if it is 10 minutes, even if you only listen to 5 minutes, a bit of kind of a light in their day, because obviously during lockdown, a lot of people can't go and do a lot of stuff, and if it is listen to a podcast and maybe they kind of go away, oh, this is like a pub chat, this is kind of good therapy. I think Fitzy, it's definitely a good way to, as you say, it could help people, and if it gives somebody 5 minutes of joy in their life, then we're happy days.
It's a good thing. I get a WhatsApp for a boy that I know off Twitter who runs the Kuala Lumpur CSC, and he's sitting, I don't know if it was his back garden at a cafe or a pub or something like that, but he's sitting with the podcast on in Kuala Lumpur and he's going, oh, there's a couple of English boys here, so I've got him listening to it as well. I'm going, that's just insane. So even like, it's one guy who follows me on Twitter who's got it playing out there, but you know, my voice is in Kuala Lumpur. That's all right for me.
That's when you know you're made it, mate.
Exactly, mate. Aye.
Then obviously, we'll kind of go to the game yesterday, Robert. Obviously, the lineup, one up front again, which we've spoken about in this, for me, we'll go into Beans and Fitzy opinions on it, but for me, I know maybe the 4-2-3-1 might suit us, but I don't like my man up front. Again, Edouard up himself, I'll get medal to him. I didn't like the way he played. I had some nice touches, but he's just not the guy that we are expecting. Obviously, Jay Forrest on the bench. What was your kind of opinions of the lineup, Robert, and obviously the game itself?
I like a 4-2-3-1 if you've got two out-and-out wingers playing that can then support it as a free. But we've not really had wingers all season, so I don't know why he went with that tactics in the first place. Obviously, Elyounoussi can come in off the left, but again, he's not an out-and-out winger. He's not going to stretch a game. I know he's looking for the two wing backs to do that, but that's all right when you're under Brendan Rodgers. When you had Sinclair and Tierney down one side, Forrest and Lustig down the other side, overlapping and great, you're stretching games. And a few of the problems been all season is we've not had wingers. We really, if we can't get through a compact middle of a park, well, we struggle because we've no width, we've no natural width. And the season's just going to float out on it. It's a hard watch. I mean, we had 22 attempts, I think, at goal, but how many of them could you say Seagrass pulled off a world-class save?
A lot of them were right at him.
That's what I mean, mate. It's very, very poor.
Aye.
It's like, I'm not saying the players have literally gave up, but they seem to be total flabbergasted. They seem to have lost everything they had. The fight, the desire, the hunger does not seem to be there now. It's just powder puff to me, if that's my opinion on it.
I thought some of the play was a bit better yesterday. So, see, in terms of like direction and a bit more competence on the ball, I thought we played a bit better than we have under Lennon. So you can see the John Kennedy coaching coming in. But I think we just don't know what formation we're playing. I wasn't sure whether or not it was Edouard up front with two wingers, or was Elyounoussi playing as a second striker, and then you were playing this kind of half diamond in the middle. I think we played better, but I still don't think we found that shape. And like you say, we're missing wingers. It's easy to mark us out the game if you've got wingers, and then if you go into the finishing, 22, 24 shots on goal, that's just, you've got to score one of them.
Exactly. That's my opinion on it, mate. Definitely. But I know this probably sounds bad, right? But in a way, I was glad with that points there. The name come to Celtic Park in 2 weeks to then clinch the title. People might say, oh, you're talking shite. You know what I mean? But can you imagine they go to Celtic Park in 2 weeks needing a point and the beat us there, and then thousands of people turn up to Celtic Park? There could be mass riots. I'm not saying it still might not happen, but
Aye.
I think it would have happened more if they were to go up there and try and get a point or to beat you there. It could have been an absolute disaster.
It was only silver lining after the game for me. I think before the game, I've seen a few people saying, oh, if we don't pick up points here, then that's not too bad. I'm no for that. I wanted to win the game, and I wanted to then go to Celtic Park, and I wanted to beat them, but it's the only real silver lining. It's like, hopefully
you say a silver lining, Fitzy. It's like getting stabbed instead of getting shot, mate. It's not that great, is it?
That's a fair analogy, aye.
It's a bad one in it. What one do you want first?
Obviously,
I know.
obviously yourself, Beans, what was your kind of thoughts as well? Your main man, James Forrest, was back in the squad as well.
Aye, I was over the moon to see him back. We've missed him. I know he takes a lot of flack, and I'm sure if he grabbed a megaphone and ran into the crowd, he'd probably be a fan favourite with no questions asked. But for me, James Forrest has been one of our most important players, and he has been for years. You look at his record with Celtic, it's just under one every 2 games he's contributing a goal, and that's throughout his full career, not like the last couple of years, his best seasons. That's his full career, and you've got to remember some of those games he's been coming on as subs and whatever. So I highly rate him. But in terms of the game overall, I think we started, I wouldn't say we started amazing, but we started a lot better. And like Fitzy was saying, in terms of off the ball, movement, confidence, I actually saw El Yunusi try to beat players for the first time in about a year and a half, which was nice to see. He remembered how to do it. But I think I'm just having a go at everybody. But I thought,
who did you like, Beans?
You're not going to like that answer. First half, I actually like Ryan Christie, but
see the amount of people that put in Twitter. See if he could just hit a shot and hit that plane out of the sky. That'd be magic.
Do you know, it was, I thought overall, it was just, I started, and I say a bit of hope, like Robert was pointing out, there wasn't really much to look forward to, but I started, when the game started, I thought, right, this actually might be a comfortable win, or at least a good performance, and then as the game's going on, you're looking for something. Turnbull gets whipped off, they bring on Griffiths, you've got a Yeti sitting on the bench who already did the business at Dundee United before. A Yeti must be sitting there thinking, I'm Celtic's second most expensive striker ever. The most expensive striker in Celtic's history is on the pitch right now. He's staying on the pitch. Why am I not coming on? A game like that, especially towards the end of the game, how many free kicks did Dundee United concede in the Celtic half? And we're taking it short. We're waiting for us to get back into shape to take it. I'm not saying we need to go route one and we shouldn't have to go route one, but you're struggling against a team like that who we don't have width to break them down. Make it difficult, play them at their game, put balls into the box, try and get something scrappy. You're not going to break them down. That's why 22 shots, and it was easy for the keeper because everything was predictable, everything was telegraphed, and all they need to do is sit and be compact, and they did that. So I think it started off with a bit of promise and then fizzled out for me, and it was the icing in the cake, really.
I think that's been the thing most of the whole season, isn't it, Robert? That we've been speaking about as well. We always start games, the first maybe 5 or 10 minutes, we're tippy-tappy, then we progress, and then it fizzles out again. I think the game against Hearts was basically maybe the silver lining of the season for me, was we were brilliant. I know it's against Hearts, you don't really want to take too much of the game, but we started really well, and then the last half an hour, when they get the first goal, we fizzled right out again. For me, the first 10, 15 minutes, I thought we started well. I agree with you, Beans. The game looked, for me, I said to my old man, it's going to be 4 or 5 a day. We were starting the game really quick. It was a bit of attacking intent, and that's what Kennedy said. We wanted to start with a bit of intent, Robert. And for me, you've got, during the full game, you've got to score when you're on tap, because the way we've been being all season, it only takes one corner, one free kick, and that's us basically back to square one again.
100%. If we started these games with intent, scored early, they could have raked up a few goals. But when you're not scoring the goals, it's like at Ibrox, we were brilliant for, people say for 45, 60 minutes. I thought we were brilliant first 25 minutes. And then Rangers just got a shape and just sat in and just went, no, what? They're not going to come down the wings. Just go compact and try and stop them, because I think Rangers wanted to go toe-to-toe with us in that game in December. And then when they seen us coming out the blocks firing, they went, oh, that's what we're up for today. Let's just kind of settle them and try and sit in a shape and let them hard to break us down, and we'll catch them on the counter. And I think a lot of teams have saw Celtic this season through that. I think we've actually had a plan A, never had a plan B, and I think that's been our downfall.
I don't think we've had a plan A.
Well, that's you could say that. You could really say that, let's be honest. I think the club as a whole has been too arrogant towards this season. You know what I mean? Like, we had Tony in the building apparently for signing talks, and we managed to fuck up the deal. How we done that is, the guy scored, I was just reading earlier, it's like 24 or 26 goals and 9 assists, and you're just like, my God, him with Edward up front could have been a dream.
It'd have been deadly.
Aye, but no, we've just.
But even at that, mate, we've went and spent the money on Ayeti instead, and he's played half the games I think he should have, even when he's had a bad game. See that type of player, and I know a lot of people won't like this comparison, but he is like Morelos. If he has 3 bad games, that 4th game he's probably going to get 2 goals and an assist, and that's what could change a season and pick up performances for other players around him. And especially when you're looking for something like, as much as Edward has great control, lumping a ball up to Edward for, you know, a bit of a change or to take pressure off the defence if teams are pressing us or whatever. Ayeti would bring so much into that team. So I just think that just kind of one of the many factors this season in terms of, I know Fitzy said we've not really had a plan A, and I think that you probably couldn't. If you asked me, gun to my head, to name our most played starting 11 this season, I probably couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
Because it's been chop and change, and to have a team like Celtic on a pitch like Celtic Park, playing with a narrow diamond in the middle every week is just absolutely ridiculous, considering that 10 out of the 11 teams we're going to face every week, they'll just sit.
They're just going to camp in.
Them to the ground. It's baffling to me.
The frustrating thing for me with that diamond, million men on in one goal, but he never had the support. You've got all these players sitting deep and nobody gone up the wings past them. It will baffle me for years to come why we didn't go into the January transfer window and pick up some wingers, or why we didn't play Elyounoussi on the wing where his best position is, or why we didn't play, I don't know, Micah Johnson or throw in a Karamoko Dembele. I have no idea why we didn't do more on the wings, because it was clear as day. We won the league last year on a 3-5-2, and then this year I just don't understand the diamond. I don't know anyone that plays it well, apart from even peak Barcelona didn't even play a diamond, did they?
It was a 4-3-3, wasn't it?
I'm trying to think of anybody that plays that sort of diamond and has any sort of success, and then plays 2 strikers with 1 striker.
I think you would need to get back to the 90s for a diamond type of, like.
We don't talk about the 90s.
But I mean, like maybe a Man U type of thing, but it wasn't even. It was a diamond with a stretch wingers. When it was Giggs and Beckham, with Keane sitting in front of the back four with Scholes in front of them, that was more a diamond. It's a big diamond, you know what I mean? No, a compact diamond.
But it's like shades of Lennon are still here that we're playing a diamond with like 2 strikers. I'm 99% sure Elyounoussi was playing as a second striker when we had strikers on the bench.
It's not even shades of Lennon. It's still Martin O'Neill. Everything Neil Lennon knows is from Martin O'Neill, and Martin O'Neill's a great manager, and what he did with Celtic was brilliant, and I'll not have a bad word said about him, but the identity that we've got and that's carried through is still coaches from the early 2000s, and we're now in 2021, and they're still trying to use an identity and a style of play it's outdated. And you look across the city and they've got a relatively young manager who's worked with good managers recently, and obviously, like, I know when Brendan came in, he changed a lot for us, and although watching Rodgers sometimes, especially towards the end, it was, I wouldn't say it was boring at times, but it slowed down, but we still could get results, and we still had that about us. And then when Lennon came in, we switched things up a wee bit, went a bit more direct, and we were scoring goals and we were doing well. But I think that was just because we changed it up and the players had that fire. But I think they're going into games thinking this isn't going to work. This formation isn't working. They're looking at the bench. You've got about £8 million of strikers sitting on the bench, and as you said, we're playing Elyounoussi up top, who decides to flukily score a goal every third game and act like he's a £15 million player.
You see, for me,
you're not a fan of Elyounoussi.
For me, we're talking about Elyounoussi, right? I think, see, if you get the right manager, I think it would be a right system. I think he would be a player for us. And obviously,
100%, aye.
With Ayeti, Beans, I'm 100% with you. I've said in our podcast that I think he's not as good as Hooper, but he reminds me of Hooper. Just his stats and everything about him, his movement. I think with wingers, I think he scores 15, 20 goals a season with wingers. He just needs. We don't play to guys' strengths. See, like, he's playing Cal McGregor based on the left yesterday. Cal McGregor can't play there. That's not a position. If he's in the middle of the park, he takes control, he plays the passes. We've seen it before. So why, as you say, we played 3-5-2 in the league. So why you want to change up and use a different formation with the same players? As we've spoken about it before, that see, if you're playing with the youths a 4-4-2, you're playing the development 4-4-2, you're playing the first team 4-4-2, it's all the way through, fair enough. Then they all know if they step in, they know what they're doing. But we're going for a was it 4-2-4 or 4-4-2? We're going at every formation. It's like the way it was coming in for me was he was losing identity at everything. He didn't know what to do anymore. And I think me and Robert have spoke about how he was always saying he was very disappointed. And we're like, we're fucking disappointed, mate, that you're doing the same stuff every week, and as fans, and we can see exactly what's going on and how they can see. We know I get it 2 up front for me. Him and Edouard would be brilliant.
Aye, let them make a partnership.
But get back to the time with Tony as well, Robert. I agree with you that I don't know what Fitz you think, but I think we're missing a big target man, a big guy who can hold the ball. I'm not saying Hartson or Sutton, but we're missing a big guy like that to hold the ball up and interchange of play. Edouard's all right to it, but for me, he's not strong enough. He doesn't use his body quick enough. He uses his body when it comes to having the ball at his feet. But the hold half defenders, especially in Europe, if you're going one up front, he can't do that.
His best, or maybe not necessarily his best form, but some of his best form was playing up front with Lee Griffiths. They got a really good partnership together. There's obviously mitigation that Lee Griffiths just hasn't really been fit or match fit all season, but in terms of a big striker, I think the first thing we need to address is how we're going to play. So, like we say, Neil Lennon lost his identity. Nobody knew what he was doing. Naively, I thought John Kennedy will come in, and what he'll maybe do is revolutionise it, and he'll try something different, because we all know he's a well-regarded coach. So is he going to try something different? Is he going to play 2 up front or 3 up front? Or is he going to change it up a bit? But he's not really done anything with his opportunity. So I think that the first thing I'd probably would want Celtic to address is how are we going to play, and then fit the players to fit that. A second striker makes sense to me, but it depends how you want to play. Ayeti seemed to be quite good at that. Ayeti seemed to be a bit of a shithouse up front, and he'd knock into people and he'd be everywhere. Lee Griffiths is obviously quite technical and worked really well with him. Klamala, I still don't know where he fits in, but seems to be a good player. But I think that's my only complaint just now, is John Kennedy hasn't really done anything with the role. He's just steadying the ship, but not very well.
I think as we've spoken about, Robert, how Lennon lost his identity and he was just blaming everybody else apart from himself, and no playing the players like Ayeti up front, or he's playing one man up front. You've got, as being said, you've got one of the most expensive strikers we've ever had on the bench, sitting there chopping it back to get on. And then even yesterday, Kennedy brings on a midfielder for instead of bringing on a striker, and you're nothing each type when a game of football. It just doesn't make sense.
No, I did think John Kennedy and iPad boys part of the problem. I don't just blame Neil Lennon for it all. I don't think he was solely 100% the reason. I think collectively they're all bad, and I think that's what the problem is. And I've nothing against John Kennedy, nothing against Neil Lennon, but they shouldn't be anywhere near the position as Celtic manager or assistant manager. You go for a guy like Brendan Rodgers, it's like dating a supermodel and then pick somebody up the Savoy in it. That's what it's like. Let's be honest, it's the different in management styles, and everything about them is just completely different. It's just that Celtic keep going on about being an elite club. Well, prove you're an elite club. Let's see what you're going to produce now. As a football manager, I don't know. I'm not a football manager, and I'm not saying I would have this option, right? But you've got a guy in Edouard who's got silky feet, right? Cracking big player, no great at holding the ball up. You've got Griffiths who's a goal scorer, different option again. I'm not saying this is the answer, but a guy of Lyndon Dykes stature, if you're at maybe a game like Dundee United, it's getting tough, and as he says, the park might be cutting up, or even Livingston, a guy like that you can just fling balls into to knock down for Edouard or Griffiths. It gives you a different option, because you can't always play pretty football, and I just feel you've got to have different options. You've got to have different wingers, ones that can take players on, ones that can... there are staff in tight parks. You've just got to have different options, and I think most Celtic players are samey. They don't have a lot of variety of options. Just my opinion, but I hope we're the right manager, we will have that different variety of options for every different task that we're going to come up against.
See, when Steve Clark comes in after the Euros, you know we're getting Lyndon Dykes, don't you?
Shut up, that's not happening. You know, I'd rather see. I completely agree with you, mate. And see, to be honest, and I'm not even taking the piss here, I would genuinely have had put Chris Ayer. See, if I'd have known that Ayeti wasn't coming on and Klamala wasn't coming on, I'd have rather put Chris Ayer up front rather than Griffiths, because he'd have done more. And like, I think that's just the thing, that it's not even about having a plan B. We don't have, because I think the whole point of getting, I think Lennon coming in was the easiest option at the time. And I think looking at it, Lowell and co have probably thought, well, we've got the better squad and this, that, and the next thing, and we should be fine. And they've kind of banked on we should be fine, and they've banked on getting pals in. And I'm sick to death this season of hearing former players and whatnot talking about how good Neil Lennon's man management is. Like, tell me a football manager that's managed Celtic or Rangers that doesn't have good man management. Ronnie Dyler gets praised for it. Everybody gets praised for it. Even, I mean, with the exception of Kishinya, maybe, I can't tell you a Celtic or Rangers manager for the last 30 years that I've heard that they've had awful man management. It's just everybody has it. If they're at that level, they have it. So it's just nonsense.
Who was the French boy they had?
Le Guin.
But mate, even in France, he's probably had people say they're good man management. It's just nonsense to me. Yeah. I just think it was the easy option, and we've paid the price for it. And whoever we get in next has to have a bit about them. Great man management is the bog standard. It's like saying, he does a podcast and he has a computer. He has a voice. He can speak. He can speak. That's man management. His vocal cords are quality, mate. You've got to hear them. Like, no bother.
I get the fact that John Kennedy might be a good coach, but being a good coach and being a good manager is completely different things. In my opinion, I don't feel being a good coach will win you games of football and tactically aware and doing the right things that a right manager done. Like Brendan Rodgers, I'm not saying he was a be-all and end-all, but a Martin O'Neill type of stature, a Brendan Rodgers, even a Gordon Strachan to an extent, coming in and working on what they've got and being able to deal with that in different situations and maybe grinding results out when you're playing shite. And I just don't feel we've had that this season.
It's the difference we've had. I still maintain that we have individually some of the best players in the league, but our manager got the worst out of those players, whereas Rangers, I don't think they've actually got that great players, but their manager had them playing out their skin. And I think that's where your manager comes in. I think that's been the big thing for Neil Lennon. I think he's been getting the worst out of some of these players. And like I say, John Kennedy hasn't really built for that. I'm quite excited the fact, and I hope John Kennedy gets more games, because now it's all about second and maybe a Scottish Cup run. I hope he takes the opportunity to try something different. And at the very least, like I'm one of the people that's been saying John Kennedy's a good coach. There's a reason we've had him for so long. See if it doesn't pan out. At least he's tried it and he's had that opportunity. So I'm kind of optimistic the next few games. I hope and I wish just try something different, do something different, put your stamp on the role.
So I think it's basically a free fall now for Kennedy.
Aye.
There's nothing for him to lose. I don't think he'll get the job. I think he knows himself. I think the job's too big for him at the moment. Maybe in a few years' time, if he goes elsewhere, if he goes to Hibs or he goes somewhere different to get more experience, because as Robert says, it's all right being a great coach, but being a great manager is maybe, obviously we're not superstars, but in the Scottish game we're superstars, and to deal with the players you need to have maybe a bit more aura about you than maybe John. For talk's sake, guys like, I know Nancha might not come back, but guys like Hamid, Ward, maybe Elanusi, maybe Scott Brown, extent these guys, see somebody like him walks in, they're going to go, fuck off, pal.
But mind when we had Damien Duff.
Aye. But if somebody like Eddie Howe or I know these are just names that might not even happen, but Eddie Howe, Benitez, whatever, Ralph Ranić, whoever, see if they walk in, or there's a gaffer walking in, it's the same with O'Neill. O'Neill supposedly the gaffer, shit, there's a gaffer come in. And I think that's the way, I'm not saying we need the fear factor, we just need a bit more about this, because I think it did go stale with Lennon. I think I totally agree with you, I've said it before on here, but I still say individually, we've still got the best squad in Scotland.
Right.
Individually, for me, we're still far better. But Rangers, they're through the kitchen sink at them this season. They're from the kitchen sink at us financially, and it's paid off. Everybody's bought into what Gerrard wants. People might say he's not good enough for Rangers, right? But what they've done, they've been successful. And as much as we don't want to talk about them, they're the standard bearers now. We need to get past them now. We need to do what we can. If it is to go unbeaten in our league, if it is to, we need to know what we have done is, to us, it's not forgotten about, but especially Scottish football now. And it means it's basically, that's Rangers back, fuck Celtic. That's what it is now.
I think it's, I've had a bit of time to digest where we're sitting at now, because it's not as if we've lost us in a helicopter Sunday. Writing's been in the wall for best part of 6 months now, and I think looking forward to next season, it is quite exciting. And I know people might not want to think about that too much right now, because obviously it's not great, but the fact that we're going to get Dominic Mackay in, we could get a director of football, we could get a new coach in, there's probably going to be quite a lot of transfer activity. I think we'll find out in the next. I reckon, regardless of what happens with the Scottish Cup, I think this will probably be Scott Brown's last season, whether it goes into coaching or not. But I think we've got such potential right now for what could happen next season. And it's not as if Rangers are going to go away overnight. They're performing well in Europe. They've done well this season. They're unbeaten in the league. So we've got standards to hit, and those are the standards that we set, and they got up to those standards, like you said. And we've got to do what we can do to get there. And I think, like you're talking about management, I think that's key for me, because you look at Duffy, right? And Shane Duffy's a completely separate conversation, but he's come up for Brighton with Graham Potter, right? And Graham Potter, you hear great things. Pep Guardiola talking about how good he is and the rest of it, and I'm sure his standards are absolutely spot on. You do not miss training, you're not late, whatever. He comes up the road, we beat Hamilton, and he gets 4 days off.
Yeah.
Like, that's I know everyone talks about Neil Lennon's drinking buddies, but that's the standard that we had in our most important season. So
yeah.
I think it's paramount that we get somebody in who's going to bring those standards in. And again, I don't actually massively care who the name is or what it is. If they're the right person for the job, they're the right person for the job. And
I agree with you, mate. Bring back Ronnie Dyler.
Because obviously, Robert, that's something we've spoken about as well, that we have the professionalism slack this season, big time.
100%, Ryan. The fitness, everything about it's not the same, is it? The professionalism of the players, it's like, I'm not a single Griffiths out here, but he turns up to pre-season overweight and couldn't even go on the pre-season tour.
Right.
For me, that's just a shambles. The guy might have mental health issues, but that to me is setting the tone. Born goalie going to Spain on a pandemic. To me, that means there's not a lot of respect for the manager. That tells me that right away. Then obviously there's been other issues. I reckon there's been more issues inside the club that we don't know about, because then you get Lennon coming out after Ferro and Farrow saying players don't want to be here, their attitudes are stinking, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. That just tumbles again, that just makes more. Then you get, after Sparta Prague at home, you've got McGregor in an interview ready to spill his guts, only that the interview kind of get cut short. So again, tells me there's been a lot of issues behind the scenes that we don't really know about, and we probably will never know about. But the club has been too arrogant throughout the season. They just expected Neil Lennon to come in, fling money at him, and we'll just go and win the league. I feel the professionalism of Celtic Football Club after winning them 9, just thought it was just a given. We just to turn up, and that was us. We're going to just, as long as you fling money at it, it'll work.
Nice.
We didn't plan really well for this season, and it's come back to bite us in the arse, unfortunately.
See, when you got the players coming out and saying, fans can't expect to win everything, and we were going to lose eventually. I'm sure McGregor said it, Frimpong said it. I think a few people have come out and said it, and you're going, that, like, if we lost it on the last day, we would probably be nobody as annoyed, but we lost it October. Exactly. Like it's like, I've got a few like my pals, Rangers fans, go, you gutted? And I'm like, no, mate, I've been through the stages. We lost it ages ago. This was like that. It wasn't any. It's not that it wasn't a big deal, but it was a big deal months ago. So, and it's worrying when players come out since and say, well, we weren't going to win everything, but we could have won more games.
See that? Exactly. I know, Robert, you'd mentioned about like McGregor's interview and Lennon coming out and saying that. See, the point for me where I knew it was done was, I think it was before the Ibrox game. There was an interview with Scott Brown, and he was sat with that backdrop of Celtic Park behind him for the corner, and Jeremy McCulloch's interviewing him, and it was like a hostage video. He was sat there like, yes, I believe that we have a chance at mate. That's no Scott Brown. There's too much going on here. And see if Scott Brown, who's been there for 8-9 years or something, and he's been the captain for that amount of time, and he's won like X amount of trophies and whatever. See if he's having to put on his bad poker face halfway through the season. It makes you wonder what the other players are having to do and what they're talking about. And they've referenced how Scott Brown's in charge of this player's WhatsApp for the past few seasons. I can absolutely guarantee they've all been in there slating Lennon all season, because I think, like you said, I don't think he's had the changing room at all. And when he got the job originally after Hearts, as soon as I heard him talking about in the media about how he was saying, like, I'm not as good a coach as Rodgers, so we just need to keep doing what he's doing and hope we can sustain it. and you're not there to sustain it. You come in, you put your own identity in, and that's where we failed. You need somebody to come in. So asking me when I worked in McDonald's to come in and look after a chef's kitchen, like I might understand how to put the hob on, but I don't have a clue how to make a steak. Do you know what I mean? So
you're not getting your Michelin star.
I don't have my Michelin star, so it was. I think it's just been a series of failures for that.
I kind of work out if your analogies are on point or horrendous or a bit of both.
He's got a wee list there, isn't he? Just I'll say this one today.
That's next.
See what I really want to hear more about is Neil Lennon is essentially has alluded to in the media that there's more to come out this season that we the fans didn't know about, and I really want to know what he means by that. So like some of the things that he'd said when he was still in post about Celtic arguably getting different treatment from the government and different treatment from the media on like the Dubai trip, for example, and he's proven to be right on that given what's went on over the weekend. But he's kind of alluded to that there's more that we don't know about, and I can't even remember the turn of phrase that he used, but he has said that there's more that we don't know about, and I can't for the life of me think what it is.
Was it no undermining circumstances or something? It was something like that, wasn't it?
I don't know what it
was. Mitigating circumstances.
That's the one
that I can't disclose at this time. It's like, right, sound mate, no bother. Like it's like turning up late to your work and going, "Aye, mate, it was mental, but I can't tell you why, so we'll just ignore it." Like, no, you.
But don't pull me up for it.
Aye, like it's not, and it's not. Regardless of what it is, he's still not going to get an excuse from it, and he's still to blame as much as MD. But I don't really care about the circumstances all he's talking about, whether it be pressure from the government or whatever it is. I couldn't care less. You're fundamentally failing on the park. So unless Lobo was turning up and no letting them train or something like that, I don't know. What was it?
What are the mitigating circumstances that made you play? Elyounoussi is a second striker, or Ryan Christie is a second striker. What was the mitigating circumstances that made you keep playing Brown off form and not playing Sorrell? There's no mitigating circumstances from that. That's a management decision.
And the thing as well. The thing about that is, it's the circumstances about David Turnbull. It took until the Lille game for him to fling him in. He's been brilliant ever since. Yesterday as well, I thought he was one of the better players. Again, he's too calf, and I see him inside the park, he's shaking his head. And I'm shaking my head, I'm big enough, man, not if that was me. Yeah, again, I think Celtic need to watch what they're doing with him, because if he's getting too calf, he might be like, he's out here, get me out of here. I'm not staying here, because see, wait
a second, Ryan. Wait, you hear this, right? A boy at Turnbull's 21 years of age keeps getting took off 60, 70 minutes, but a guy at Scott Brown that's 34, who's end of his career, has to play 90 minutes.
It's crazy, yeah.
And a guy like Cal McGregor, who's no missed a minute the full season, yet his performance hasn't been up to it, doesn't he miss a minute? It baffles me in that fact. As you say, Turnbull's influencing games, but he still gets took off.
Again, that's where your management, your man management, and you know how I went to put subs on, when to take them off. And as we've said, there's no plan A, no plan B. We spoke about it millions of times on here. It was the same subs, just about 59, 60 minutes, 70 minutes, 75, 82, 83. It was the same subs. It was Griffiths, it was Ayeti, and it was Elyounoussi, and it was Mikey Johnson. And see, for me, it's just not good enough. Why it took him? I know he had a knee injury, Turnbull, and maybe you've got to go from all about Celtic. I think maybe Armstrong says it when he came to Celtic. It took a few weeks to get fit up to the standard, which is fair enough. You can handle a few weeks, but no 3 or 4 months when the team's not playing well. Where I call them the old guard, Brown, your Jams, your McGregors. They're not playing well. Give him a break. Brown, we all know Brown. See 35, 36. Maybe the difference is maybe Ronaldo. He's a machine, right? He's different. But Scott Brown should not be playing 3 games or 2 games in a row. And that's when your manager, Neil Lennon, should be man management, and not just it should be these backroom staff. It should be saying, "Listen, Gaffer, come on, give him a break." But it's he only game yesterday. I thought Turnbull brilliant. He just took off again. Beans were talking about Ayer. I thought Ayer's been one of the best players all season. I think he'll probably get player of the year, but Edward might get it because he's goals. But I like it, Ayer. He's passing. You see every time he gets a tackle one, he's get in there. He's only guy that's really doing that for us this season. He's maybe one of the only shining lights when it comes to us this season. I thought it was good yesterday again, taking the ball out for the back. And that's what me and Robert spoke about, Beans, when it comes to Scott Brown doing that. Why is Scott Brown taking the ball for fucking centre back and playing it? Let Ayer do that and get us up the park.
So I kind of joked about it at the start of the season when we were playing at home like that, but I genuinely said, see, when we're sitting at home, put Scott Brown in a back three because it's the role he's playing anyway. The pace of Ayer and Julian next to him, they can catch up on it. But I just don't think Scott Brown... I think Scott Brown's influence is clear to see, and he's come on in a few games and it's been evident this season that he still has some form of influence. But that said, I don't think Sorrow every game is the answer either, but we've definitely seen too much of Brown and too little of Sorrow. But I think, players like Ayer, and he's been great at points, and I think Welsh coming into the team, Ayer's definitely kept putting him under his wing, despite the fact that he's got a international and Shane Duffy, who clearly isn't interested either. He's come up for a party, and even his antics and whatnot. So I think for Scott Brown, I don't see a future for Brown that's on the team. And if he goes into coaching and he's still a player, but he's moved into a coaching role, whatever it may be, I don't think there's a manager that would come in that would look at Scott Brown and say, you're not in my plans at all. I think any manager worth his salt would come in and say, right, you're Celtic's most winningest captain. I'm obviously going to have you involved at some level, but I just don't think that. Even yesterday in the game, like, he was constantly trying to, like, he was doing that thing he used to do. He's been doing it for years, where he'll hold on to the ball and he'll play the pass last second so that then he drags somebody in and it creates more space for McGregor to move into while the ball's wide and we can switch it quicker or whatever it may be. But he's no good. He's not quick enough for it anymore, and it's the thing. It's going away from him, and he's not as sharp as he once was. And it's more evident in every game. And the more that Brown was dropping to pick up the ball in the second half, Dundee United's game plan was just press him. He gave the ball away 4 or 5 times in the second half alone, and that was purely down to he's just missing out in games. And you look at that, and Turnbull's coming off, and we're keeping strikers on the bench. It was just it kind of summed everything up. And like I think everybody said it, nothing's really changed with Kennedy. So I think he's ripped himself off for the job as well.
Aye.
For me, one of the only shining lights yesterday was I kind of like John Joe Kenny, Robert. I think he's steady Eddie. I don't think he does much wrong. His first game, he was against Kilmarnock, he was up down, putting crosses in. But that's come back now. He's not doing that as much. It was the same with Laxalt. His first 2 games, he was bombing up, getting crosses in, and that's come back again. Is that just because we are making players regressing? Is that like we've been all season, players have regressed under Lennon, under this structure? Or is it they're just not doing it anymore because they're getting sucked into this team that's still playing well and they're not going to concentrate anymore? But for me, if we can get John Joe Kennedy, would I sign him? Maybe because he's steady defensively. He does his job going forward. Yesterday, him and Christie started well. Probably Christie, for me, I would get rid of Christie, Robert. But on John Joe Kenny, I think he's been a good signing. But again, why January? And Lenny says he's wanted him for a while. Why not push a boat and get him to summer? Why wait to January?
I like him, but I don't feel he's in our price bracket. I think you would probably waste most of your wages and your budget if you were to try and sign a guy like John Joe Kenny. I don't know what the budget will be in the summer. I don't know who the manager will be, but I would say you're probably looking at, with a decent manager, he's probably going to get the best part of 12 to 15 million pushing it, and he's got to make that work. And obviously, depending on who we're selling off, that could all depend on Ayer maybe going for 15, Edward going for 20. They might then push the boat out with a manager of whatever calibre we get. But as I say, Ryan, I like the sound of Eddie Howe, Benitez, Martinez. I think they're all calibre that we should be aiming for. But I think we'll be below that bracket. I think we'll be going for a Michael O'Neill, a Steve Clark, somebody who knows how to work on a budget and can manage. And I think that's the more the bracket we'll be kind of looking at. As I say, I like the Graham Potter. I know I spoke about him previous. I like what he's doing at Brighton. Seems to be doing a good job. I like Sean Dyche and that, but I don't know who we're going to get, but I don't think it'll be the blockbuster appointment everybody's hoping for.
Which obviously, Fitzy, we'll go off the game yesterday because obviously it's not really a positive note, but
what was that to talk about?
I spoke about enough, but we'll touch on obviously the manager situation there, but obviously we'll touch on a wee bit about the aftermath for Rangers, but obviously yourself, Fitzy, who was your Who do you think would suit us, and who would you actually think is going to come in?
So I think a lot of people are down on Steve Clarke, and I'm kind of all for Steve Clarke. I think in terms of a manager who would sort out the defence, Steve Clarke, grind out results, Steve Clarke has connections in football. He was obviously at Chelsea. He's been, I don't know if he was ever a manager in the Premier League, but he was certainly a manager in the Championship. West Brom, aye. And then got Scotland to the Euros. In terms of a CV, I think that's a decent enough CV. So see if Steve Clarke came in, I would not be upset at all. I wouldn't be, out getting scarves of Steve Clarke and all that, but I'd be pleased with Steve Clarke. In terms of who would I want, I don't know. Roberto Martinez and Sean Maloney. Do you know what I mean? Like for wish list, I'd want somebody like that. I'd want who's the guy? Was it Marco Rose was the one that we were looking at for a while? Or Celtic fans were looking at? Aye, exactly. So there's the managers you'd really, really want, but I'm going to state my case for Steve Clarke. I would not be upset with Steve Clarke, and I think he would do a good job. Whether or not that's inspiring enough to keep people like Odsonne Edouard, I think that's the next step. Is if we get in a big exciting manager, the likes of Odsonne Edouard may stay on for another season. But see if we go, what's your boy at St Mirren or Hibs, or see those sorts of managers. If we get somebody inspiring, your great players will be off. So I'm kind of up and down, but I'm going to make my case for Steve Clarke.
For me, Steve Clarke wouldn't be the worst. My worry about that is I don't know if he would sell season books. No. Again, but we don't know when it's going to get announced. Is it going to get announced in a few weeks? Because, in my opinion, if it's going to get announced in a few weeks, I don't think Steve Clarke's anywhere near it. But if it's announced after Euros, then he might get it.
Once we've won the Euros, you know what I mean?
I think Steve Clarke would be a decent appointment. Again, nothing too flashy, but I think he would definitely set us up defensively. As much as he started getting Scotland a bit more better to watch, especially defensively. We're not really conceding a lot of goals against obviously decent opposition. But again, when you play teams like Belgium and stuff like, you're going to really get beat. It's very hard to beat their teams. But I like the way he sets his stall, and that kind of links with the fact what Robert says about dealing with a budget. He dealt with a budget at Kilmarnock. So that's obviously, we know his man management skills are spot on because he's got A players playing. So I can take that on board, mate, and I can say I don't think a lot of fans would be too disheartened with him to win. And obviously yourself, Beans, which would be on your Christmas card list, shall I say?
But yeah, left field choice, because I was having a wee dig around just like managers out in Europe and after Lennon went, and I was thinking who to go for, and I think the kind of things that you've talked about and Robert alluded to as well, there's a lot of things you kind of want to see. You want somebody to come in with an identity of football, somebody that can work on a budget. The Granada manager, Diego Martinez, he is taking them from the second division in Spain where they were sitting absolutely deadpan. They had nothing exciting going for them. He got them promoted. He's had good performances against Real Madrid and Barca. Graham Hunter pops on a bit more of the time. He's got them into the Europa League. They're in the knockouts. They've been performing well, and he's had to work with his best players getting sold. He's had to work with restricted budgets as well. So I think somebody like him, and I don't know whether because he's had quite a lot of build up with the Spanish press this year, whether he would cost us a lot or not, but he's definitely not going to cost us what a Roberto Martinez or a Rafa Benitez would cost, or even an Eddie Howe. So I think somebody like that would come in, would probably excite the players. Think players like Callum McGregor would probably quite like the idea of getting a Spanish manager and their style of play, Chris Ayer and the rest of it. So for me, it doesn't necessarily need to be him for me, but somebody that kind of ticks those boxes and makes me think, all right, cool, and I know what Fitzy's getting about Steve Clarke. We're never getting Steve Clarke. It just wouldn't happen. He's got Scotland in the best position they've been in for a very long time, and with a young squad full of talent, Steve Clarke could stay at Scotland and get his, regardless of what happens in Euros, he could get us to a World Cup. And if he gets us to a Euros and a World Cup back to back after years and years of misery, he's probably going down as one of the best Scotland managers, at least in recent times. So I don't think Steve Clarke wants to go anywhere, or he will go anywhere. Plus the fact that he constantly talked about Kilmarnock, about how much he hated playing anywhere in Glasgow because he hated all that nonsense that came with it. So I think we can forget about Steve Clarke. So you don't need to go and buy a scarf, Fitzy. But I think, for me, MD like that, Eddie Howe, I would love him. I like the way he talks. He's almost like he's very similar to Rodgers in that way when he talks about football. It's very interesting. And
when you order Brendan Rodgers off Wish.
Aye, but do you know what, mate? I would take that.
So would I.
Because right now we've got Poundland shops with the same guy that's in the job. But I think as long as we get somebody who doesn't necessarily need to be a big name to keep players or to bring players in, but somebody who can get a style of playing, I think that's the most important thing, that we get teams around Europe looking at Celtic again and thinking, like, right, because it's not going to be next season, everything's going to be absolutely fine and flying again. Even if a manager comes in, it's going to be 2 or 3 years. But for Dominic Mackay coming in, he has to have a game plan for the next 5-10 years. We want to be a Champions League club again, or we want to achieve this, and we need to be able to work on that, and we need the right appointment for that. So I'd be happy with MD apart from John Kennedy at this rate, and Steve Clarke
and Neil Lennon.
And
I agree with you when it comes to the guy for Granada. I don't think I like to think a guy at that stature would jump at a chance to go to Celtic. I know he's doing well with Granada in Europe, but where else can he do in the Spanish league? He's never going to win the Spanish league, but I think it's a very exciting. I agree with you. It might not be exciting because we've lost the league, but for going forward, me and Robert spoke about it. I think could be another Ronald Dyer era where he finished and it was all doom and gloom, and then boom, we got Rodgers and it was all Celtic are back. Celtic's get all the focus was on back to us, and I think this is what needs, as much as Rangers have done. If we do get a good manager come in, I think he's just going to switch all the focus back on us again. Again, the way the foreigners play, I like the style of play that the foreign man's play. It's all possession based, attacking based, and it's counter attacking, and it's they don't really focus a lot on defending, but it would suit your guys like your Edwards and your McGregors, because I think Edward, maybe his style of play does suit the foreign game. I don't think he should into this type of our game. I know he's been doing well, but I think now he's going to be, but it just looks sicky for me. And I think we do need somebody to come in and re-energise the squad. I've said for day dot that Eddie Howe for me would be the main man. He's on my Christmas card list, guys, as Robert knows. He's somebody I think I agree with Beans. He talks very well. I've delved into him on YouTube and listened to his coaching and how he sees football. He's obsessed with winning, and he's the guy David Webb spoke about him. He says that he's always, whoever's he's in a job with, he's in there for a while. He likes to have a project. He likes guys to come in and learn how to get to his style of play. He wants to coach them. He wants to improve them. He says he doesn't know now that some players don't want to get involved in that. They just want to come in and do their job and get home. And he says, well, if I can't come in and coach them, then they can bolt, because if they don't want to take to me and take to my coaching staff and bolt into the club, then they're not going to be here. And for me, Robert, that's...
So that's Griffiths away already then.
So for me, Robert, that's the attitude that we need to strive to, is everybody buys into what we need to get to. And if it does take... Listen, if we need to take a hit next year and lose the league, obviously we'll be raging and unhappy, but if it means another 9 in a row, then I'll fucking take it all day long, because we're not expecting as fans, obviously as fans, you're expecting, right, win the league next year, get to Europe, get this. You want everything to come back quick, but this is going to be a long rebuilding process, and you need somebody with a lot of experience. This isn't a job for your John Kennedy's or another Neil Lennon. This is a massive rebuild, Robert, and I think with Mackay to win, we've spoken about, he's got to be talking to Celtic now, because this isn't just a thing that's going to happen for 2 months and be all rosy again.
Well, Dermot Desmond said after the League Cup or Scottish Cup semi-final against Rangers that he'll never want to experience that again, and he went out and got Brendan Rodgers. So I'm just hoping Dermot Desmond's watching what everybody else has been watching the last few days, and the arrogance it's shown against us, and just how they're taking us at us back. We're the greatest team and all this shite that comes with it. Or this natural order resumed, even though in 1960 or something Celtic's won more titles than them, all this pish. I've actually had to embarrass a few of them about who's won the most titles in that time. I'm just hoping that they've poked a sleeping bear, and Dermot Desmond again, and he goes out and does what's needed.
It's a bad analogy.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean by that now.
No, you're right.
Analogy, but woken asleep in bed, as I say, and he does turn around and go, you know what, I'm not accepting that, because Dave King said a thing 4 years ago, and then after 4 years it came and he's went, apologies. It's like saying to somebody, you're going to die. 10 years later he dies and goes, I told you that. You know what I mean?
He was going to die.
Eventually going to come in and it's happening. And I just feel that as a club, we need to get back to where we were, and stop being arrogant about how we just expected to turn up this season and go and win trophies. I just feel we need to get back to basis and get the manager right. Let the manager control his transfers, because we know that's why Rodgers left now, because he wasn't in control of the transfers. And let the manager manage the club, and let the director of football be the go-between the CEO and the manager. Don't let, obviously Peter Lawwell had too much influence in the team and signings, and I think that needs to stop. That needs to be, we need to go modernisation and go with other European clubs and good clubs and how they deal with things. It's like, you don't see like Van der Sar and Ajax going out and signing players. You know what I mean? You see the manager going out and signing players, or the director of football. We need to just go in that sense, because I think Rodgers would have stayed for the 10 if he wasn't getting influenced by Peter Lawwell. I do honestly think that.
I think he's a rat bastard that jumped as soon as he could.
You can always say that.
But we might need to agree to disagree on that one.
After Neil Lennon gets sacked.
Yes,
I would agree with Robert on that. See, when Dembele left and it was this whole, when Dembele left and then Rodgers left, and Dembele kind of hit out with the whole like, oh, one day you'll find out what the script is and what happened there and whatever. And I think it's more down to Lawwell than it was ever anything on Rodgers, because Rodgers could have probably progressed us in Europe. The only thing that was holding him back for me was Lawwell, and he didn't have full control. And I think it was that whole ego thing of Lawwell thinking, I've got the best British manager at my club right now, and I'm telling him who to go and sign, I'm telling him who we're selling, I'm telling him what's what, and it just doesn't work. It can't work. You can't get a manager in and tell them, oh, by the way, we're punting them, or we're bringing this player in, make it work. Because I mean, look how many players come in under Rodgers that not a chance he signed them. Not a chance.
Definitely not.
He did tell you, it was after the Italian boy, Pacini or something. It was after John McGinn, and it was after somebody else. Celtic go out and signed Malumbu to come on up.
Aye.
I think we're for about the 600th time just to come in, and then they signed.
Just for bants.
They signed somebody else. It was like three bizarre signings.
Gamboa,
and Rodgers
as the Kiri's pal.
Aye.
Rodgers wanted they three in to progress us, because he knew Lustig was coming to end his tenure. He knew that McGinn was going to obviously replace Brown, and he knew that Kieran Tierney wasn't going to hang along very often because he was one of the best left backs in British football. So he wanted to replace him early, and I think, see, with him McGinn, there's no rumours going about that Celtic had him in Celtic Park ready to sign, and Peter Lawwell tried to take $100,000 off the deal, and that Rod Petey's meant to have went, fuck you, and hung up.
There you go. That wouldn't surprise me, to be fair. I was actually more excited, or not more excited, but I was like equally as excited when Peter Lawwell said he was resigning at the end of the season, because I think this is a big step towards fixing a lot of these issues. That might be naive, and your man Dominic Mackay might come in and just be as bad, but I was quite excited the fact that Lawwell's away, and some of these issues that we've had with Lawwell trying to control things might be gone. And if it means we bring in a director of football, magic. I don't know, as he said he is going to do director of football, is that just wishful thinking for the fans?
I think supposedly the Celtic have got a it's like an agency organisation, and I think they're doing interviews on it. That's right. What I've heard. I think a lot
because there was a boy for Juve, wasn't there?
Aye, I think a lot of clubs are doing that now. I think they're getting into organisations to interview people instead of the club doing it themselves. I think it's obviously maybe time consuming and whatever else, but that's just what I've heard. Rumours. I don't know if it's true, Fitzy, but I've heard supposedly Des was told our agency to interview guys for a DOF. I don't know if it's true, but
I think once we get that in, that you need that wee bit of disconnect between the manager and the chief executive, and I think that will be a good thing going forward, because we've got all the makings. We've got all the makings of being a fantastic, successful club that just made an absolute arse this year.
Because obviously as well, we've touched on a lot of stuff, but the last thing I want to touch on, Beans, is obviously all the aftermath for Rangers and how we would treat, as Fitzy says, Robert says, but we treated different. A few things, people think we're paranoid, but as I'm getting older now, you kind of realise certain things aren't right and certain things have been happening. And again, the start of the season for me, I don't think a lot of people actually clicked on it. Kevin Clancy said at the start of the seain, all us referees know what this season's all about.
What's at stake.
What is at stake?
Wait a minute, you're there to do a job. You shouldn't care what all the noise is about. And then obviously the thing with the Dubai Beans, Lennon and Jaime are the 40s in a restaurant, 40s at the side of the pool. But that was given the get-go. But then they can, fair enough, we've had a bad points. We went to Parkhead. A very, very minority went, 40, 50 people. I don't know how many went. It was a minority. People might have found stuff, whatever else. But the big difference, you might have been wrecking your own fucking stadium. You're not going out wrecking your city. Your benches that people pay money for. That's just, listen, we've been to away games, we've been to home games, we've been in pubs. People might say Celtic fans this. I've never seen us writing anything like that in my life. Memorial. You have a laugh, you get a bit of banter, you celebrate and whatever else. And I just think Sturgeon's just totally turned a blind eye to the full COVID thing. Me and Robert spoke about this isn't about Celtic Rangers now. This is about general life. In general, it's a general pandemic. It's a general. We can't see people in our families. We can't go and see just a single guy. You can't go and see a bird. Can't go for a coffee. You can't do anything. But because they're elite athletes, they can share motors. They can go and celebrate. They can go and do this. And for me, it's just I just find it baffling how it's getting swept under the carpet.
Do you think that annoyed me the most was I can't blame a Rangers fan for going to Ibrox, right? Because if that was us doing 10 in a row yesterday, I would still be at Celtic Park. But the thing that's kind of annoyed me the most about it is, fair enough, they've gone to Ibrox. Then the police have walked them to George Square just to gather there, which baffles me. See, even the day that we won the treble, probably the best day of my life, right? I was watching it in the south side, didn't have a ticket, and then at the end of the game, me and my pals, we all heard about the bus, obviously, so we all boosted over to the East End, walking along, bevy in the street, right? No damage was done that day. It was a great day. Everybody enjoyed themselves. Obviously, no pandemic, so it's very different. But see, as soon as we heard that the bus wasn't coming, the police were just breaking up the road. And within a couple of hours, they completely dismantled everybody, and everybody was sent packing, basically. You're looking at police eventually taking action and actually trying to disperse the crowd at about 10:30 last night. So I think the only reason nothing happened probably comes down to Sturgeon, probably the fact she's got a lot of heat on her now, probably looking at not wanting to upset too many people. But I think it is, I think it was always inevitable. And the problem is that it's been plastered everywhere about Rangers fans they were going to go to George Square, and see if they want to go and they want to go out, and you can't stop people from leaving their houses and turning up somewhere even during a pandemic, but what you certainly can do is limit what they can do and limit the damage that they can make. And see if you've got thousands and thousands of people and they're all steaming and they're celebrating the first title in 10 years, see, unless you police it properly, it's only going to go one way. And it's actually probably fortunate that it didn't even get any worse, because see if the police eventually at 10 o'clock, if the crowd was still big and they eventually started to try and behave the way that we probably would have behaved with Celtic fans, it probably would have got quite nasty, I'd imagine. But I think it's just been completely ignored. Sturgeon didn't turn up for a presser day. The police, the chair of Police Scotland last night, tweeting out gifs going, I wonder how all the armchair police officers,
like head of Scotland Police Federation.
It's vile. It really is. They're completely disregarding and what's annoying me the most is people are saying, you're just annoyed because it's Rangers. Like, no, I'm annoyed because it's now just going to extend everything by another couple of months, and see in a couple of weeks' time and we see the spikes that happen off the back of this, it's not going to work well. It's not going to look great, and all it's going to do is completely impose even more on this. We didn't go out and celebrate for a quadruple treble, and fair enough, we probably didn't want to at the time because the manner it was won on penalties, but it was still a huge moment, and I would love if I could go into town and celebrate, or go to Celtic Park and celebrate. But again, I don't begrudge fans for doing that. But as you said, mate, the way it was dealt with by the police, by Sturgeon, and still not dealt with, and I know they've come out now, but you see even on that announcement today, Peter Adam Smith had to basically throw it back at them and say, "Nah, you're talking mince. Like, this was encouraged by the team. This was encouraged by everybody, and they're just looking to just completely ignore it." And I think the only thing that Neil Lennon's probably done right this season is come out and say we've been treated differently, because the proof's in the pudding.
I totally agree with it. I know for a fact, I wouldn't go personally because of obviously my work and stuff like that, right? But in general, fans would go. I know they would, but there's a difference between social distance and wearing a mask and having a laugh, I think, in a manner. There's a total difference. You've seen them all fight each other. You've won a title. What are you fighting each other for? Just go out and enjoy your day and just celebrate it. And I think Fitzy, I totally agree with Beans. I know for a fact fans would go. You can't tell people going. I totally understand that, but at least make it an organised event. At least, I know it's even no matter, it's no right, but at least make it a decent event where you know it's going to be policed properly, people are going to be civil, and just enjoy your day. That's really all it is.
Aye, fans are going to go out no matter what, and I dare say if we'd got 10 in a row, we would have been the same. I think even if it was treble, we would have been the same. Quadruple, treble just didn't have the same ring to it for some reason. But I think the reaction afterwards hasn't been what I would have expected, and I don't think it has been the same for Celtic. And not even Celtic. I've seen some people say St Johnstone have had different responses in relation to players travelling in cars together and car sharing. So the full thing has just been, it's been a nonsense from SFA, from Scottish Government and from the police. I just don't think it's been handled very well at all. And that coming out last night and saying, well, what would you guys have done different? Many things, mate. I wouldn't have kettled them, and I wouldn't have took more people into a condensed area and then been surprised when they all started fighting each other because everybody was pissed. And then there was that stuff the day that all the benches have been wrecked, and then from the family's perspective, they've now raised funds to rectify that, which actually I think is fair play. But you shouldn't really be putting the city in that position to wreck the place. I don't know what would have happened if Celtic had been in the same place. I don't know if it would have been policed differently or fans would act differently. It's all what ifs. But
Celtic fans can't turn up to protest against the death of innocent black men without the police corralling them. So yeah. I dare say if it was 10 in a row yesterday, it probably would have been heavy-handed. And you can call me paranoid, you can call me what you want, but years and years of what's going on. You saw yesterday when Gerrard's car rocked up, there was an actual policeman jumping about celebrating, which if he's a Rangers fan, fair play to him, but at the same time, the fact he feels comfortable to do that kind of says the levels of it all, doesn't it?
I agree with you, Beans, 100% on it. I feel we get policed different for the other, let's say, supporters of Scottish football a day, and I've seen it, like fans getting kettled in, I mean, when we won the treble, the police had their batons out. Why would they have their batons out? What was the need to have their batons out? You know,
the photos are a bit mad, and they're all standing up in a line, storming with batons, and you're like, against who? It's just people going about and calling each other Tims and shouting "Hail, hail" at each other.
I know, exactly.
Singing about Stuart Armstrong's hair. Like, it's not as if it's this big aggressive march,
You know what I mean? I feel the full thing yesterday was shambolic for the Scottish Government, the police, and that football club. I just felt total arrogance for them. They just didn't care. They were happy to shout out their windows in their changing room and encourage the fans and run up to the fence when they win. We get they've got to celebrate and they've got to enjoy it, but it shouldn't have went to Ibrox into the city centre to then smash memorial benches up, smash Celtic shop window up. I mean, let's be honest, they've got previous for doing stuff like this. They do not know how to behave. I'm not saying all Celtic fans are angels, but I would say it's a minority of us and it's a majority of them. I think that's the difference. Call me paranoid, call me a bigot, call me whatever you like. That's just my opinion, and that's the way I feel they act. Manchester was another example. Barcelona 72 was another example. They've been called a lot of names under the sun for all the behaviour. We'll not discard it on the podcast, but I just feel they do not know how to behave, and I think that's the problem with them.
It's just everything that's went wrong this season with the Celtics went wrong, and then you've got all that in the aftermath of stuff with Dubai, and obviously that's all happening now. It's just I think it's just no right what's been happening. I totally agree with. We would have probably done the same, but there's certain things you don't do, and it's not really it's just down to a bit of good manners, common sense, just being decent people. We understand you're drunk, we all do stupid stuff, we all have in the past, but there's a difference between stupid stuff and breaking stuff, especially smashing like the shop window. That's just it's crazy. Obviously, kind of the last word on obviously Celtic Beans and kind of the last overview of the season, which obviously your main thoughts going forward.
I think we've just got to get it right. Dominic Mackay's got a big job from what it's kind of looked like. Is he's definitely asked if he can leave his rugby post early to try and get his teeth into Celtic, and I like hearing that, and I like the fact that we're in this position. Like Fitzy said, I think Lennon going was good, but Lobel going was really what we needed to change, and we're getting rid of probably two of the two guys that have spent the most time at Celtic in the last 30 years, aside from Desmond, and it's his pockets that we're using, apparently so. So I think that for next season, as long as we make the right appointment, we get our business done early, I'd really hope that if we get a director of football in or whoever it is recruitment-wise, I really, really hope we get rid of this this routine of every transfer window leaving it as late as we can for not necessarily the best deal, but the most bargain value deal.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things I'd like to see change in the behaviour of the club. So if we can do that, then I'll be happy with that. And I think, like you said as well, Ryan, obviously I want to see us go and win every trophy next year, but see if it means that we'll have, because we've been pathetic in Europe over the last decade, let's not kid ourselves, and even longer. So if we can get somebody in, and I don't expect this to be a Champions League club year in, year out, but I tell you what, see with this third European competition starting, it'll be unbelievably embarrassing if we get flung into that one year and get packed out it. That would just be really taking us to a level that we should be higher than. So I think for me, if we get somebody in, you'd mentioned about Eddie Howe, how he likes a project, somebody who's willing to come in and put the work in and really build a stature and an identity around the club again. So that's all I really hope for, and I'm confident we'll hear about that in the next couple of months, I'd imagine.
And obviously yourself, Fitzy.
I think long term, just to echo what Beans has said, short term, I'd like to see us win the Scottish Cup this year. I think it would just be magic. I would like to see us beat Rangers in 2 weeks' time and stop their unbeaten run as well, but the Scottish Cup would be magic. And
obviously yourself, Robert, we all know that it's got a massive rebuild. Obviously short term, obviously win the Scottish Cup. I think me and yours is really the same as Fitzy and Beans, just try and be better and get it done and dusted by the start of the season, so we're rebuilding for next season.
Definitely, boys are spot on with it. I said, I just hope in the background there's a manager identified who's watching Celtic and saying, right, we can't announce him, say after the Rangers game, right? For instance, we announce Eddie Howe, and Eddie Howe's got 4 targets of players he wants, and then as soon as the summer hits it, boom, 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 you've got 4 signings sitting there, start of June, ready to be paraded. We hit the ground running, because if we delay it, then it's going to cause more problems. I'm hoping Dominic Mackay and Lawwell are working 24/7 behind the scenes to rectify what's needed at Celtic, but we don't know. I mean, this club's quite deafening, the silence that's come out at them now. They're quite good at promoting when they're doing well. When they're not doing well, they don't seem to be as vocal in the press and stuff.
They just wish happy birthdays, mate.
They wish happy birthday.
Aye, they wish happy birthdays, and that's about it.
That's all they do now.
I know we've been on a bit longer, but it's just good to cover all these topics and get your opinions, Fitzy Beans, because we could talk about Celtic all day. Me and Robert says you can spend 4 hours in a podcast and just talk rubbish, but I think it's just good to get a bit of sense and a bit of evaluation about a lot of topics. And again, I hope your podcast continues to grow, guys, because they're kind of good listens, and I hope you continue to kind of get a lot of good guests on, and good luck in the future, Fitzy Beans. Thanks a lot for
Thanks very much, mate. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having us on. It's been great.
Yeah. And Robert, thanks again, mate, for coming on. And again, the Rangers game coming up, so we'll have a kind of podcast kind of going through the Rangers game, and hopefully some decent information comes out about us in the next kind of few days, and a bit more positive notes. But again, Fitzy, Beans, Robert, thanks for your time, lads. Hail.
Cheers, man.
Cheers, mate.
Bye.